Hello, my name is Allison, and my lit review topic is communication between physicians and nurses. My research question: is there a difference between communication of physicians and nurses? And the thesis statement that I came up with is there is a difference. And this is because physicians have a lack of attentiveness to the role of nurses. There's a hierarchy system within the healthcare system, and then a decreased collaboration between the two. And I chose this because I think it's important that as we enter into the healthcare system that we do know how communication is going to play a role in patient safety, patient healing, but also how is communication going to be with our future coworkers and our future peers. So I thought this was really important. When looking at Article 1, this one is about interprofessional collaboration between physicians and nurses and how they view it. And a lot of factors contribute to this, whether the physician or the nurse has greater patient load than the other profession, years of experience, demographics, looking at gender, looking at leadership roles too. So some of the strengths were Bowles et al. 2016 presents that collaboration between nurses and physicians is characterized by effective communication, demonstration of mutual respect and trust, and shared decision-making and responsibility. And the studies show that both leadership roles either had a positive effect or they had a more reactive and transactional. So really looking at, okay, leadership roles both had a different kind of play in how nurses and physicians both see collaboration. So leadership roles had an effective way of looking at it, but also they didn't contribute too much too. So they kind of lessened collaboration as well. And then the article showed that nurses are more likely to feel underneath the power of a physician. So this is where that thesis statement comes in and really talks about, that hierarchy system. So this article does state that the physician is the more dominant role in the healthcare system. So this kind of contributes to that. Weaknesses: population used was mostly white and female, so not a lot of diversity. Most physicians were younger than the nurses, and most physicians had less experience too. Most of the physicians that were in this article were postgraduate, whereas the nurses in the article were a kind of across years of experience. So some were just coming in, some were about to retire. Article 2 is physicians and nurses' medical errors across associated with communication failures. Really important to analyze because communication plays a large part in medical errors, and this is really where that article states this as well. So the article discusses that both physicians and nurses stated the contribution to medical errors is due to low communication, so that it really is impacting it. And Topuku et al. 2017 discusses that poor communication that leads to medical errors is due to illegible handwriting by the physician, some medical errors that are done by the nurse, whether that be reading the wrong medication or reading the wrong package, also just giving the incorrect dose as well. So different forms of communication are really playing a role, not just verbal. There's many more. The study article mentions that 74 physicians and 135 nurses stated medical error did occur from poor communication. So backing it up with that statistic there. And then not having written documentation of a verbal order contributes to a medical error. So you have your first form of communication, which is the verbal order, but the second form of the written is causing that medical error. So if it were possible and we had that written order, would we be avoiding that medical error right there? Weaknesses: I really saw that there was less physicians in this article. So a lot more nurses, so I thought this was kind of a weakness that could maybe skew the results. Article 3 is investigating the relationship between communication and collaboration of nurses with physicians from a nurse's viewpoint. So very important that we're looking at this and, we're we're seeing it from the nurse's viewpoint here. So a lot of the strengths that come from this is contributing to that thesis statement too. So the study found that nurses' relationship as a subordinate to a physician can cause poor communication and affect nurses participating in clinical decision making. So feeling that hierarchy there and feeling that lack of attentiveness too. So Asghari et al. 2015 describes that there is a lack of attentiveness of physicians about the special roles of nurses regarding patient care. So not paying attention to what a nurse is capable of can impact how that nurse is going to communicate with the physician too. So big strengths here. Weaknesses, participants were to only have a bachelor's degree, so there were only nurses with BSNs, no nurses that were just a registered nurse or an LPN. Sample size was small, only 106 participants, and physicians' viewpoint was not included, only the nurses. And a majority of the participants were female and not male. As far as gaps in research, not enough viewpoints of physicians, male population is small, need equal amount of each profession, especially physicians, so more of them, and analyzing other professions as part of the healthcare system. So really looking into communication with the healthcare system as a whole. So, lab tech, IV team, respiratory therapist too. And then what do we do next? I think it'd be really important that we have seminars for physicians and nurses to be together and work on leadership, teamwork, and communication. I think that there should be, in a curriculum, there should be classes that are really working on collaboration with other professions too. So really working together, how is communication going to play out once we get into that field? And then practicums that provide the practice of utilizing communication between both physicians and nurses. We do that now, but continuing to do it is really important. And even if we could do it where there's a medical school and in a practicum you actually had that student physician in there with that student nurse too, to really practice that collaboration, that communication as well. And then this is my reference slide, and thank you for listening.